Hey everyone. All right, I have actually really got in the mood to do this. I was not joking in the last video when I said I really do want to talk about this more. I am going to be doing a top 10 list on a series of movies that I really am in the mood to have some discussion on this series channel. The Muppets. Man, I've said a lot about how much of a childhood I have. I talked a lot about it when I reviewed the Muppets in my top 10 list last week. And then, of course, there was those shorts where I showed off my box of nostalgia toys, which mostly had Muppets in them. So, as you have already can guess, I am a big fan of Muppets. They made my childhood a little bit, and I still enjoy watching and thinking about them to this day. So, I think they do deserve a top 10 list. That being said, you wouldn't think there are enough theatrical Muppet movies to make a top 10. Well, I have been able to find enough. Now, let me get this thing straight. When I'm talking about the Muppets, I'm not actually talking about like any puppet related project made by Jim Henson or whatever. So if you're thinking that this list is going to include stuff like The Dark Crystal or Labyrinth, I'm not saying I haven't seen those movies. I definitely have seen. Right. Yeah, I definitely saw them. Maybe I didn't. But anyway, they aren't really part of the same Muppets canon, or like not at least they aren't really as Muppets based, because they may have been made by the same guy, and it is the same idea. You can call them Muppets if you want, but I don't really think I can consider them part of the same sort of big franchise or universe as the Muppets. They don't really match in the same length, so I'm not including any of those films. What I'm including is stuff that includes characters like Kermit the Frog, any of the other fun fellows from the Muppet Show, or anybody from Sesame Street. That's right, Sesame Street's a big nostalgia. A lot of children grew up with that show. It's pretty much for everyone. It's still going to this day after like over 55 years. Jeez. But anyway, while some people say it's debatable, Sesame Street and the Muppets are part of the same universe. When thinking about the Muppets as a series, you do normally just direct those to those Muppet Show based stuff. But as an overall, say, cinematic universe, I think Sesame Street counts in the mix. So for this top 10 list, I'm focusing on cinematic films starring the Muppets or the cast of Sesame Street, which are also the Muppets, really. I mean, Kermit the Frog did appear in Sesame Street a bunch of times back then, so, in a way, yeah, it is the same franchise and such. Sesame Street content, Muppets content, all that stuff in between. This top 10 list, I'm going to be talking about my personal favorite Muppet movies, whether I enjoy them the most for their comedy, their songs, the plots, which ones I just seem to enjoy the most in general. I really do love talking about these films. It's something I have wanted to do a lot on this channel, so today I'm going to do it. Let me go ahead and share with y'all my opinions on these beloved characters that I hope a lot of you grew up with too. If you didn't, I don't want to talk to you anymore. So here is a Sesame Street movie, because of course good old Sesame Street's got to have some cinematic adventures, and it's one that, I'm going to be honest, is not a good movie, to be honest. I'm gonna say, looking back now, this movie's pretty bad, in my opinion. Elmo in Grouchland. This is Elmo's first cinematic adventure. Apparently, of course, the 90s was when Elmo was such a big deal. He was like the new mascot of Sesame Street. I'm gonna be honest, I actually didn't mind him. I liked him. He was fun. He did actually work really well for the show, and I was into him and the sort of attitude he has. I will say, Elmo actually was a character I liked. Was he my all-time favorite? Of course not. No, it was Cookie Monster. But still, he still had a lot of good time to shine, and I do understand why he was such a big deal. Still, his popularity was, of course, enough to warrant him to have a big screen film to focus on. And in a way, I guess that's not a bad idea. I mean, what cool adventure will Elmo go on? Will it be like a fish out of water story where he interacts with the real world and sees that everyone's not as nice as him? Or will it be a list of new characters that are in a different, kind of this different outside world that he explores or something? Well, what the movie is Elmo getting trapped in Oscar's trash can and falling into this random world that apparently takes place under place from some sort of dimension warp hole that's just random in a place called Grouchland, which is inhabited by people based around Oscar's breed. They're grouches, I guess. And in a way, that could sound good. I mean, it is basically a fish out of water story, like I think of, Elmo in the real world, because we all have a grouchy attitude with us. The problem is that they do not welcome his interactions with the Grouches very well. Like, the Grouches are too cute, and they sing, they have nice attitudes. They aren't really grouchy enough to really work into the story's advantage. There's not really much danger or excitement in the story. Then there's, of course, this human villain that apparently lives on a mountain in this land. He's Mandy Patinkin, not a very well-known actor, but I mean, hey, he's been in some stuff. He was in Princess Bride, I guess that's something. But anyway, yeah, he's the human villain who this movie treats for the sake of its moral, teaching us to share or something, sharing is caring. And he likes to take things and claim them for something. So Elmo has to save his blanket from him or such. Look, I'm being honest. My biggest issues with this movie is just that it's not engaging in any way. The story gets too boring or too uninteresting. The message isn't really done to the right point. They really don't give Elmo enough courage to work off this moral. It's not really memorable in any good way. I think what I hate the most about this movie is how all the other Sesame Street characters are treated. This movie has, of course, all the other characters, but they're treated pretty badly in this film. Like, some characters go to Grouchland 2 to try and save Elmo, but then they get locked up in prison, so they're just gone from the story. They're just stuck in prison there. They don't have fun things to say. You got Big Bird, who isn't funny or engaging like he was supposed to be. You got my boy Cookie Monster. He barely has anything to say, which sucks. And even Oscar the Grouch himself, he doesn't really get enough purpose. Like, they don't really give him enough character development or build-up like they say they try to or so. I also really hate how Bert and Ernie are handled. In this movie, they decided to make Bert and Ernie the narrators of the film. And that would be fine, maybe narrate the story from a perspective. Like, they start the movie off, which is fine, I guess. Except what they do instead is, at random points during the movie, when something crazy is happening, like something super scary, they stop the movie and are like, oh my god, this is intense. Something bad's about to happen. And then it's just like, oh wait, no, nothing's bad's going to happen. Everything's going to be fine. So yeah, they just take away our fears and excitement and tells us, no, don't be scared. Everything will be okay. That was stupid. Their characters aren't well introduced either. Bert's the worry one, and Ernie's the one who tells him everything's going to be fine. That's not their characters. That's not what they're like. I guess in terms of its production design, I mean, the areas are nice. They do have a good vibe to it. As well as the soundtrack. Some of the songs in this movie are okay. It's not a great soundtrack. I don't even say most of it's good, but it works, I guess. I don't know. This movie it's not good. I think it sucks, to be honest. If you want to enjoy it as a Sesame Street fan, that's fine. I'm sure a lot of us grew up with it. It's just not a good movie for me. Alright, now let's get on to the good Muppets. Okay, let me not say it. Now here is Muppets from Space. This is usually considered to be the weakest of all the Muppet movies. And while I do agree, hence why it's this high on the list, at the same time, it honestly is still a really good movie in my opinion. Well, not really good. I will admit it's not great. But I will say it's still a good movie in general for me. This film focuses on good old Gonzo, the Muppet who nobody knows its species of. He apparently learns that he is an alien, as his alien parents have been calling him through weird messages, but no one believes him until he's captured by Area 51, who say they do believe him, and so he pretty much tries to continue the journey there, which just results in him getting tortured to death. So now the rest of the Muppets have to save him or such. Before I talk about why this movie is good, I might as well go ahead and bring up all the issues I do agree with. Firstly, yeah, man, the idea of a movie called Muppets from Space sounds really exciting. It sounds like it could be a really cool sci-fi-esque movie or so. Instead, it's a boring type movie that's kind of in the suburban environment where the Muppets don't actually go anywhere in space.
throughout this whole movie, we don't actually get to see the Muppets go to space at all. The only time we see them in space is through this silly fantasy sequence. That's about it. It's just about Gonzo's family parents who we don't see till the very end when they arrive in a Close Encounters-esque way. It was kind of cool, but it's just not much build up to it. I don't know. It just really tags dull to its idea, and I feel like there could have been more cool excitement with it, but instead it's a suburban TV episode like thing, so it doesn't really get to the right material. And yeah, these Muppets are now just a suburban group of people. They're basic citizens. Unlike the other movies where they had such big roles, like their personalities, there were some big character with a big career. In this movie, they live together all in one house. It's weird just seeing all these a huge load of Muppets living in one regular house, not even a mansion. It's just a simple house. That was kind of ridiculous. I don't know. I feel like that could have been explained or shown better. But yeah, they're now just this basic family like group in like what feels just like an extended TV episode. There's not really any excitement to how they do things or whatever. They're just a basic family now, I guess. And the whole Gonzo getting captured, them having to save him, just feels like something I'd see out of a sitcom episode rather than a new Muppets film. I think the biggest issue, however, that I know a lot of people can decide to include making this the weakest of the films, it's of course the biggest problem everyone has with this movie, and it's one I definitely can agree is a pretty bad thing. The lack of music. This movie is not a musical. Unlike the other Muppet movies where you get to hear fun new song numbers, in this movie the entire soundtrack is funk songs, existing pop tunes. It's one of those 90s movies where it's just pop songs for the soundtrack. Not even one sung by the Muppets. It's just simple pop tunes. I mean, the aliens sing Celebration, but they don't even sing it. It's obviously just some Reddit version that they're phoning in or something. But yeah, man, the lack of original songs in this movie does make the experience even less engaging. I thought maybe that could add some excitement to the story since it is kind of dull, but no, it doesn't do that. Alright, so that's enough of the flaws. Let me go ahead and talk about why I do still like this movie. Despite those issues, the movie is still hilarious. Comedy-wise, this movie has it all. All these Muppet characters still provide great laughs. Even some of the new characters. I mean, I guess maybe not a lot of moments from Pepe the Prawn. He was, of course, the new one for this movie. I wouldn't say he was as funny, but there were still a few laughs involving him, which I guess is good. But still, just about every Muppet in this movie provided a great laugh out of me. Even the humans had some funny moments. Got Jeffrey Tambor as the main villain. He had some fun stuff, especially with Bobo. The Bobo the Bear stuff is probably the only thing that makes me actually consider this a good movie. If his scenes weren't there, I probably would have more fun criticizing this film. But because of him, I can't help but love it. And while the suburban household thing I was criticizing, at the same time, I actually will admit I had a lot of fun with it. I think as a comfort movie, sitting down, it does feel very comforting to see, these Muppets kind of live a basic life, not do much excitement. While on the one hand, it does create a more boring and underwhelming experience, on the other hand, it is a fun new aspect, so I'm 50-50 on it. One hand, I would like more excitement. Other hand, cool, creative comfort type of concept to go with that I'll accept. So yeah, this is still a really good movie. It's obviously not great. It's still pretty flawed, and I definitely can agree it's the weakest of the bunch, but I still accept watching it. Now we're on to another fun Muppets journey. Muppets Take Manhattan again. Title like that, you should expect some great stuff here. We got these joyful singing Muppets in New York City. Got some enchanted situation going on here. They're going to be interacting with such a group of dangerous, bad people. It's going to cause problems for them. Well, actually, what this movie is, it tells the story of Kermit and the gang, who in this movie are college graduates. That part just never comes to clue. They don't give us exposition that this is their characters now. We just open with it and accept the fact that this is their new characters. Apparently, every Muppet sequel likes to have its own canon, so now they're college graduates, I guess. And again, I would have liked some clarification instead of jumping right into it. Kind of confused me at first when I'm watching this movie as a child. But anyway, so yeah, They're college graduates who have this big play that they want to put on Broadway, but they can't get a distributor for it. They try so many times, no one gets to them. And then all the Muppets decide to go ahead and just go away to get different jobs. And Kermit decides not to leave and stay in New York to continue trying to sell his show. But also there's Miss Piggy, who stalks him in New York. That shouldn't be hard. As Kermit continues to try to sell the show, as long as getting help from some other characters, like some human fellas as well as some rats. This movie introduces us to a whole brand of rats who work in this restaurant and serve food to people. Yeah, the Muppets were doing it before Pixar was. Anyway, I might like Muppets from Space. Before I talk about why this is still a good movie, I might as well go ahead and just bring up every issue I have with it. First and foremost, yeah, the plot gets boring. The idea of the Muppets in New York sounds really fun, but instead all of the Muppets decide to go get separate jobs in different areas. They could have very easily have just gotten jobs in New York City. That would have made for some exciting stuff. But instead they actually go away to different places to have far away jobs, and those aren't explored enough, so those just come off as forgettable. Kermit in New York. How much fun does that give us? It gives us time where he talks with this human chick. Miss Piggy stalks him. She's upset that he's flirting with a chick. She thinks that Kermit doesn't believe in bestiality or something. Anyway, Kermit apparently keeps trying to sell the show in ways. Some ways are funny, but some just go on too long and come off as boring or sorts. And then when things do start to take action, he gets run over by a car, gets amnesia, becomes a business frog, and that part just goes on too long and it kind of drags the story more. Yeah, that's kind of just a big problem with this movie. It gets boring at times, and for a Muppets movie, that's pretty bad. They're going to have a lot of fun stuff to do, having these Muppets in New York, or even just the idea of them doing a Broadway production, but instead they stall it with a bunch of scenes that don't need to go on this long. Having all the Muppets just say farewell to each other, going to different places instead of all getting jobs in New York City for some fun. And I don't know, they throw in a lot of pointless stuff. For example, there's an entire fantasy sequence, or I guess flashback sequence, of the Muppets when they were all babies. It's funny, this was the precursor to Muppet Babies, the cartoon series that I never watched, but I was familiar with. It was pretty much like a pilot for that series or whatever. But that scene was kind of pointless. It just shows them up as singing a song as babies or whatever. It's cute and pretty fun, but at the same time, not really, doesn't have a point to it. Okay, so yeah, those are my big issues with the movie. Praise. Like the others, it's still really funny. It's got great comedy. This movie did make me laugh a bunch of times. Even if it got boring at parts, it still had a great sense of humor. So, like expected for a Muppets movie. I do like the celebrity cameos this movie has. They're not big ones. Like, I only recognized a few. I knew Joan Rivers, Liza Minnelli were, but still, even if the rest weren't as memorable, their characters definitely provide some fun laughs. I was impressed to that. The songs are great. This movie's got a great soundtrack. I do like it. I do think that the movie does work its work with a good plot. Even if it gets boring, at least the plot is acceptable. I mean, it's passable for a Muppets plot. It could have been more fun. They could have done better with it. But I will still praise it. I will say it's good. So I guess that is something. Alright, now let's get back to Sesame Street. Here we have the first ever Sesame Street movie to come out. And boy, it's fun to know that I never actually watched this movie until after I was grown out of Sesame Street. But at the same time, I pretty much felt I still wanted to watch it more. I saw Follow That Bird at the age of like 9 or 10. I never knew it existed before as a child. As a child, the only time I saw a Sesame Street movie was that Alvin and Grouchland film, and that obviously didn't age well. This movie is better, in my opinion, because it does have an engaging, fun story. This movie focuses on Big Bird, who, at the time, was the main character of Sesame Street. Actually, you know what? Screw it. He still is. Big Bird's still the main character of Sesame Street. Don't at me. Anyway, he is taken from a foster care for birds and put into another family of birds for the sake of hoping that he can be happy. But he proves not to be happy, so decides to run away from that home and try to walk all the way to Sesame Street. But this, of course, is a challenge because just a child and doesn't know how far Sesame Street is. Going to be taking a long, adventurous walk. So the rest of the Muppets from Sesame Street decide to try and rescue Big Bird themselves. And all the meanwhile, there's other people after him, including the president of the foster community who doesn't want Big Bird going back to Sesame Street. He wants to just take him back to that home, expecting him not to run away again or something. And then there's also these two con men who see him as a money-making opportunity. And so, yeah, it's a big chase-off. We got It's a Mad Mad World thing, sort of, I don't know. It's a road trip movie. That's fun. I like road trip movies. And I love sort of the wide range aspect this movie has. Unlike Elmo and Grouchland, where it is just mostly Sesame Street environments, this movie actually does take us outside of Sesame Street and into a wider environment. He's not in a big city or anything, but he is interacting with different types of people. He meets a group of kids at one point. Then, of course, there's these two con men who are, of course, nasty birds who actually kidnap the bird and even decide to paint him blue for some reason, I guess. But yeah, they actually are a good villain for this movie. And all the rest of the Muppets had some great time too, because again, this time they actually make for some good characters. These characters are memorable. Cookie Monster was memorable. Ernie and Bert were memorable. Grover is memorable. Every character has time to shine in this movie. And the songs are also really good too. We got some great songs in this movie. You got a lot of good celebrity cameos in this. Well, not a lot. Not as much as the actual show, but still a good amount. You know, the comedy is pretty good. It's definitely that fun Sesame Street Muppets type of comedy you would expect. I guess my big issue is that it is sort of a dull adventure. I mean, while there is a little more excitement to it, it still is pretty dull. Not all the songs are memorable, even if there are some good ones. Some of them are kind of slow and don't really reach the same level of iconic or memorability as the show. This movie kind of just proves a good example that Sesame Street is an amazing series, but maybe it doesn't need to be on the big screen. Maybe leave the big screen stuff to the rest of the Muppets, because their kind of style is best shown on TV. This movie kind of proves that while it is good, it really doesn't really need to exist in a way. I think Sesame Street just works better when they're teaching us stuff on TV, and that the real cinematic excitement can be left up to Kermit's friends or whatever. Still, this movie did have some fun to it. The road trip was nice. It was a fun journey. I think there's a good reason why not many people would remember it. And here is Muppets Most Wanted, what is, in a very sad sense, the most recent Muppets movie to come out from the year 2014. How sad. The Muppets just had not been showing up on the big screen ever since. I don't know why. I really want to see them again, but I guess time will tell. God, please put them back. Anyway, Muppets Most Wanted. This film tells the story of the Muppets all going on a world tour for their show, but it seems that the guy hosting the world tour, Ricky Gervais, is a secret mastermind thief. And he teams up with an evil frog from Russia who gives Kermit his mole, because apparently they can do that, having him be accused as the evil frog while he disguises himself as Kermit to take them on this world tour and pull out these evil crimes, while real Kermit is stuck in prison with Tina Fey as the guard. And so the rest of the Muppets don't realize that there's a mishap, except for a few. And then this is all being investigated by Sam the Eagle and Ty Burrell. So that's a lot to go on for this movie. And I think that's probably the big issue a lot of us have with this movie, and probably one of the reasons this movie didn't perform as well, and it's probably the reason why the Muppets haven't showed up on the big screen since. There's just a lot going on here. This movie is pretty chaotic. There's so many things thrown in. Like, all three of these new celebrities, like these three main new actors, they have completely separate roles. So all that just kind of binds together for three separate plots that try to combine to one big movie. But I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot to go take in this movie. It really does try to throw in so much, and comedy wise, it's got a lot of great comedy to it, but a lot of it feels too silly to really have this plot work very seriously. But they do really try to take the plot seriously, so yeah, it's honestly just kind of I feel like the plot and the comedy don't do the best job at combining with each other at times. At times, they feel like they're just full on satirizing, doing a parody film. But then at times, the plot does meant to be taken seriously, and we're supposed to actually feel for everything. I don't know. I feel like those two elements could have worked combined better than they did. So yeah, those are really my big issues with the movie. But then again, I think that's really about it. The movie has great comedy still. It's still really funny. The songs are pretty memorable. I do like all the celebrities we got showing up for this movie because they all have some fun comedic bits. There's even a scene where we get to see Pepe the Prawn play board games with P. Diddy. Oh, I feel bad for these Muppets. Hope they're all doing okay. Anyway, this is still a good movie. It sucks that we haven't gotten a Muppets movie since. I'm holding on for the day that we finally get to see them on the big screen again. It's been so long. Come on. I want to see them again. Stop hiding them from us. They don't deserve this. They never did. More Muppets, please. This wasn't a great movie, and I definitely don't think it works as being a conclusion to the entire Muppets franchise as a whole. So, I better get more, okay? Until then, I guess this movie will do fine. It's still a really good movie. It's flawed, but enjoyable. And that's what matters. Okay, so I have something to tell y'all that's probably going to be surprising to you. While I have grown up with the Muppets a lot and have, of course, talked to you all a bunch of times on how much of a childhood this franchise was, there are actually two Muppet movies, two of them on this list, that I did not grow up with as a child and did not watch until after my childhood. Out of the two, one of them is this one, Muppet Treasure Island. I did not watch this movie as a child. I didn't grow up with it. Why was that? Part of it had to do with me still having that fear of the Muppets that I talked about. How I used to be scared of them until the trailer for the Muppets came out and I knew I had to become a big fan of it. But yeah, ever since then, I kind of just forgot what I wanted to see from this movie, other than the Muppets, I guess. And honestly, as much as I did enjoy Pirates as a child, a lot of us children did. We loved Pirates. They were fun. They steal things. That's cool. But yes, I loved Pirates, but I don't know. I feel like when it came to putting Pirates in movies, that was just something I never really got into. I think I remember a lot of pirate movies that were out. I knew about a lot of pirate movies, yet I never gained interest in any of them. Like, for example, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, none of those really piqued my interest as a child. And I guess this one didn't too. I guess I just wasn't incredibly thrilled with the Muppets' take on a pirate story, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, here I am now to talk about this movie. This is the Treasure Island story where we follow a young boy who, alongside Gonzo and Rizzo, take on a voyage, board a ship where they learn of a sake of buried treasure. However, Long John Silver is on that ship and he wants the treasure himself. So he sabotages the journey for his own need. And then you have Kermit as the captain. You got other characters as different roles. Good old Fozzie's got some role in this ship. You know, they all play these certain characters from this classic story that I have barely any familiarity with. It's a pirate story. That's all that matters. I like this movie's comedy. It has some great funny moments. The songs in this movie are awesome, I will say. This movie's got a really great soundtrack. It's awesome. And you got good old Tim Curry as John Silver. He, of course, steals the show because it's Tim Curry. Of course he'll do that. And he just pulls out the greatest pirate you'll ever see in cinema. You could say, well, what about Jack Sparrow? I mean, I don't know. John Silver could beat him. You never know. I love to see both of them duel because this seems like a heavy competition. Long John Silver or Jack Sparrow? Who's your pick? I don't know. But anyway, yes, great comedy, great songs, some pretty fun characters. The plot could have been better. I didn't hate the plot, but nor can I say it was an amazing plot. I feel like it just got dull. I don't know. I guess I just wasn't all for how much of it went down, how so much of the human characters are given this sort of drama that sort of doesn't tie in very well with the Muppets' sake of silliness. And it kind of just, I don't know. I feel like the human emotions this movie had, I feel like all the scenes involving this main little boy, I don't know. I guess I just wasn't a big fan of him. I didn't hate him, but he just never really appealed to be that interesting to me. I only really cared about him when he was with Gonzo and Rizzo. They, of course, made him an enjoyable pack. But when he was not with those two, I just can't really say I found him that interesting. A lot of these newer Muppets they introduced don't really get much interest either. I guess they're not supposed to, but I don't know. A lot of the new villainous pirate-based Muppets they have in this movie kind of just come off as too forgettable and not really something worth talking about. Still, for a Pirates movie, it works good, and it's still a really good Muppet movie. Though I will admit, I guess I can't really hate myself too much for missing it as a kid. I wasn't missing out on something amazing. But still, it was a good movie. Just, I guess, some things we just never got to get the chance to watch until later on in life. And here's another movie that goes for the completely pretty much the same idea. The Muppet Christmas Carol and Muppet Treasure Island were both released around the same time. They were both going for the same gimmick, taking a very classic story and bringing the Muppets into it. This movie came out after the death of Jim Henson. He was the creator of the Muppets, and after he died, we all thought these characters were just going to be put to rest because he was their creator, and it was sad that he died. I wasn't alive then, but when I found out he died so young, that just felt really sad to me. But anyway, their legacy had to continue, so we got this adventure where they take on the Christmas Carol story. We have human Ebenezer Scrooge, who's, of course, he hates Christmas. He's a angry, dirty, greedy man, and then he's taken by four ghosts. Like Old Man Marley. Then there's Christmas past, present, and yet to come, of course, who show him the error of his ways and get him into the spirit. This is probably the most serious a Muppet movie can get. It is a really serious film. They take the story and make sure every bit of emotional moments that the story had is still thrown in here. You think because it's the Muppets, they just get as satirical as ever, but they actually do take the story seriously with these Muppets. They actually have emotional moments themselves, and it's great to see it paired well with Michael Caine's Scrooge, who is probably the most serious of a Scrooge you'll ever get. Yes, in all Christmas Carol adaptations I've seen at least, I think the most dramatic and well-acted one is Michael Caine's. He puts a very dangerous look in Scrooge. He just plays it in the most emotional, serious way ever. And it's a pretty big highlight to this movie. It's a really emotional film. It's got some good comedy to it. Like, these Muppet characters have a lot of serious moments, but they also still have their hits of comedy, which is good. It's just a very heartfelt story that has a lot of stuff that will probably tear you up, and you will be invested with it probably the most out of any Christmas Carol adaptation, because these Muppets have such a joyful atmosphere with them that they pretty much make the story all the more beautiful. It's usually considered to be the best of the Muppet movies. With that said, however, I gotta disagree. My biggest issue with this movie is that I wasn't a fan of how little comedy there was, or I guess just how not a lot of the jokes really got to me. I feel like the pacing of the comedy and the drama is probably one of my problems with this movie. I was actually found a little boredom with this movie when I first saw it as a child. Not me saying I disliked it as a child. I just, was disappointed with how little comedy there was to it. Or I guess I just feel like the pacing of the comedy and the drama in this movie wasn't the best. It's just my opinion, but yeah. I feel like this movie paces its comedy with the Muppets and the drama between Scrooge's interactions with the Muppets. Just isn't really organized the best way, to be honest. And even Kane Scrooge sometimes buys into the silliness. Not to the sense, but I remember like one or two bits where he does have a comedic attitude for the sake of this movie being a comedy. So, it can get a little confusing for me. Song wise, I also think this movie's soundtrack isn't as memorable. Like a lot of the songs in this movie just aren't as good as they would be. They aren't bad songs. They're just, I don't know. I wouldn't say this movie's soundtrack is really up there. This is being honest, I actually think that the soundtrack for Muppet Treasure Island is better than this. That's surprising. I mean, this is the better movie, but in terms of soundtrack, I just think Muppet Treasure Island fits the tone better. Just has a more awesome, enjoyable soundtrack. Still, this movie is heartfelt. You will have fun time with it. There is a lot of wholesomeness to it. These are lovable Muppets that are taking on this story, and they will do it in the best way they can. So even if I wasn't a huge fan of it, I still really like it. And I'm sure a lot of people will too. Even if you're not a fan of the Muppets, even if you're just a Christmas Carol fan, it's definitely worth checking out. So, of course, I have just previously talked about this movie when I said I grew up with it. So, you'd think there isn't much more I need to say. Well, I might as well go ahead and bring up my actual thoughts on the movie based on its plot and everything else. This film tells the story of a boy named Walter who apparently is a Muppet, yet is never acknowledged as one. He's part of this human family who never really acknowledge why he's like this. He's just a human-esque Muppet, I guess, who can never grow tall, really, never can really age or anything. But he does become a die-hard Muppets fan, like I did. But when he finds out that the Muppets have become lost media and are just not really memorable anymore, he just goes to Kermit and tries to tell him that he should bring the gang back together before their studio gets torn down and destroyed. So he has Kermit recruit all of his old Muppet friends to join back together and save the studio. But they all pretty much had separate lives, so he has to go on this long journey, adventurous journey to go to different places to find them all. Then, of course, there's the humans who join them, Jason Segel and Amy Adams, as a romantic couple who are the whole reason they went to California, where the Muppets are in the first place. They have to save the studio before it's torn down by an evil businessman, who's about as evil of a businessman as you expect from an evil businessman. And from there, it's just, will the show they put on be enough to save their studio? Will they get successful again? Who knows? This movie is really fun. I think it really does work at bringing just about every bit of element we love from the Muppets into it. All of the songs, all of the comedy, all of the characters are all presented in their entirety here. You will, if you're a fan of every aspect of the Muppets, that's going to be here. And I think that's what really makes this movie shine the best. Just the fact that all the aspects you love from the Muppets are going to be here. You'll get that comedy that you love. You'll get those songs. It's got great songs. It's got a great cast of characters. Just about every Muppets character, minus a few, show up here, and they all have their best drive. It pretty much gives the Muppets a human idea. I honestly think this movie handles the pacing of emotions and comedy better than Christmas Carol because, Christmas Carol was more so a take on a classic story. That was, I think, in terms of, that one was meant to be taken the most seriously. But this one, I think, is the most serious in terms of its plot. The plot is what is taken the most seriously here. All these characters really do have motive. We actually learn what these main characters' motives are, like how they should strive. Should they succeed in this? Should they put more dedication to this, or should they go back to their old jobs? What can come? Will Walter be able to see his beloved Muppets again? Who knows? All that is presented really well here, and it just holds up to me as still a really great, emotional, musical, hilarious movie. Though I will admit the romance wasn't the best aspect. That's one thing I kind of wasn't the biggest fan of looking back at this movie. The romance in this movie between the main human characters just doesn't seem to fit with the story as much. I don't know. I feel like this movie romance, the only real good element the romance of this movie had with the story is giving us a pretty awesome teaser trailer. If you remember the teaser trailer for this movie when it started off as something like a basic rom-com that no one was interested in, until Kermit and his friends just randomly show up, and then they're like, "Wait, why are there Muppets in this movie?" And that's just the rest of the trailer. That was awesome. That was an awesome teaser trailer. Aside from that, though, I don't really see how much more the romance achieved here. I mean, it worked. It was a good romance, I guess. It did provide for an Oscar-winning song, which I guess is pretty cool. Still, I don't know. I feel like this movie could have still worked without it. I just didn't think it really had much of a point to the movie. It just felt out of place for me. And also, I will admit, while the soundtrack is great, in this movie, it is honestly pretty easy to tell with the soundtrack which songs feel like the Muppets and which songs just feel like Disney. That's kind of one issue I kind of have looking back at this movie. How a lot of the songs do have a Muppets vibe to them, but then there are still a bunch of songs here that are Disney vibes. Like, I like the Muppet vibes this movie gives me. It gives me a lot of great Muppet vibes. But anytime it gives me Disney vibes, a bit of my excitement fades away a little bit. Not all entirely, just a tad. This is still a really great movie. I still really love it. Those are not big flaws. They're small flaws. It's still worth checking out. I think every Muppets fan deserves to love this movie. It's worth talking about in every aspect. Alright, and here is the other Muppets movie that I never actually watched as a child. However, unlike Muppet Treasure Island, where I can perfectly understand not being able to watch the movie growing up, with this movie, I really feel ashamed for missing out on it as a child. This movie is a laughing riot. In this film, we follow Kermit, Fozzie, and Gonzo, who are playing journalists. This time, they actually give us exposition that this is their characters. Like, unlike Takes Manhattan, where we kind of just jump into it, here the movie opens with them telling us about these characters that they're playing, so we're given the general idea beforehand. Anyway, they're journalists who decide to take a trip to England to do a report on Lady Holiday, but she apparently hired a new receptionist who is Miss Piggy, who falls in love with Kermit. And she decides to disguise herself as Lady Holiday so she can look like a rich and successful woman to Kermit. But then a jewel is stolen that belonged to her, and Miss Piggy ends up being accused from it. When we learn the real culprit was Lady Holiday's husband, or boyfriend, I guess. So so Miss Piggy ends up being blamed for the crime, and Kermit decides to join forces with all the Muppets he meets in this rundown hotel he goes into in England. It's a pretty awesome hotel, minus the cheapness, but it's run by Muppets, which is cool. But yeah, all the other Muppets are in that hotel, and so they join together to try and prove Miss Piggy's innocence and to stop the real thief. So yeah, it's not called Great Muppet Caper for no reason. It is a caper. You know, there is some excitement with these Muppets. It's got great action. It's got a pretty great soundtrack, a lot of great songs. But my god, is the humor top notch. If I was ranking all of these based on how funny they are, this would be number one. But it is still number two. I mean, it is hilarious. This is full of some of the greatest jokes the Muppets could offer. And I love how it's not even just jokes you would expect on the Muppet Show. There's actually a lot of great humor in general. It's like humor that makes it succeed in terms of all other great comedies. It's not like something that's funny for a Muppets movie. It's funny as a movie in general. Like, watching this after my childhood, I still really laughed a lot with this film. I think the action is also great. I love how much the action is able to present itself well. I like how the romance between Kermit and Piggy is actually well put together. I actually do love it. I love their chemistry in this. I love how energetic the film is. If I had to complain about anything, this movie does have a lot of fourth wall breaks. I know fourth wall breaking is part of the Muppets' dilemma, and I love seeing them, but I wish there wasn't so much in this. I mean, there were like one or two fourth wall breaks in this movie that made me laugh super hard. The rest were just small laughs. And yeah, there were a bunch of fourth wall breaks in this film. I feel like we didn't need a lot of this. I would have liked this movie a little more if there wasn't so much fourth wall breaking. There was just a little bit. I feel like having this many fourth wall breaks kind of takes away the enjoyment of the fourth wall break in the first place. So yeah, that's really one just big issue I have. How many times they look at the camera or say this is exposition or this is a plot element or something. I don't know. I feel like they didn't need to do it this much. I mean, I was a fan of a lot. I was a fan of some of it, but still, I don't know. I just feel like maybe the fourth wall breaking didn't need to be this excessive. Anyway, that's a small issue. Still a really great movie. It's hilarious. It's one of the funniest 80s comedies out there. Right up there with stuff like Trading Places or Airplane. Well, Airplane, I don't know. That's pretty awesome. But I was trying to think of other great 80s comedies. Coming to America, I guess, too. Yeah, that's a great one. Naked, well, I don't know, Naked Gun. Let's just touch that chase. This is a great movie. Definitely worth a watch. Okay, so obviously Muppet Movies number one. I've talked about this movie before. Naturally, it's probably the only time I've actually talked about a Muppet movie a bunch of times. Do I really need to say more? I've been talking way too much on this video. Maybe I shouldn't say more. It's just got every great element there. It's the first Muppet movie ever to come out, and it is filled to the brim with lots of great characters, lots of great celebrity stars. The comedy is great. This romance we got with Kermit and Piggy is at its best here. I think the story does go for great lengths. It does blend in a lot of hilarious moments, but also a nice, serious, emotional depth of our characters really well. There's like a deeper meaning somewhere in this movie. This is a movie I actually think that more film critics should consider adding in their lots. When film critics talk about a good movie, they say stuff like, I don't know, Gone with the Wind, The Godfather, Citizen Kane, I guess, Shawshank Redemption. Critics will choose movies that have depth, meaning, and something that means something to a lot of ages. They should really consider putting the Muppet movie in that lot. Okay, it's not one of my all-time favorite movies, but maybe just in terms of comedies or family movies that should be there. Like when critics talk about what comedy movies have the most meaning to them, this should be an inclusion because there's a lot of meaning to this one. Sort of. I mean, it's got the Muppets in their most human idea ever. Like they feel human here. They don't feel like they're coming from a hand from a human. They just feel like real characters. And the way this movie was able to present that so much is amazing. Such an amazing thing this movie can do, making these Muppets so human-like. So yeah, everyone needs to watch this movie. If you haven't seen this movie, go watch it right now. Go watch the Muppets. Get into the Muppets in general. Don't just watch this one movie. Get into the Muppets in time. Watch it first, and then you'll become obsessed with the Muppets maybe. Maybe. Hopefully you do. If you don't, I'm sorry, but you better.